Welcome back. I pray that the trauma prayer and the listening exercise was helpful and healing for you. Let's go on to the last question. What if my relationship with my parents is unhealthy? I want to clarify that trust is not something that is simply given. It is earned. I'm not telling you that just because you have forgiven them, that you should not have healthy boundaries. Because you should have healthy boundaries to prevent abuse. You can allow for mistakes, but intentional cruelty is another matter. Honoring parents is not the same as trusting them. In the first week of the Forgiving Parents study, there was a chart that explained the difference between forgiveness and trust. I encourage you to look at that. You may need to forgive repeatedly, depending on whether you're still in relationship with them and having difficult situations arise. There may be repeated events of wounding. If your parents are abusive or unhealthy in their relationship toward you and your family, you may need to set some healthy boundaries. I encourage you to get some counsel regarding that, of what that looks like. There's also a great book that I recommend by Cloud and Townsend called Boundaries. In the back of your study guide is some other articles on honoring parents and setting boundaries with abusive parents. I mentioned in the previous week that I would tell you about how my relationship with my mother was redeemed. Through a series of events, we moved my mother and my handicapped sister up to live with us for 5 months. And then we moved them into a home next door. They lived there for 7 years. I spent the first 2 years going back and forth between the houses. After the 2 years, we turned that home into a group home where they received 24/7 care. For 7 years, my mother lived next door to us. I was deeply involved in her life. Our relationship changed. Initially, it was a mother-daughter relationship, but as time went on, it turned into a daughter-mother relationship. There were 7 years of broken hips, dementia, pneumonia, and at times, my mother's anger. There were times I had to give more of myself and my time because there was sickness or there were hospital times. But there were also other times that I had to make sure that my boundaries were clear because my family was my highest priority. I was very blessed to have those last years with my mother. She had a great sense of humor, and that was a true blessing to me. That humor is what enabled me to navigate those 7 years with her. We laughed through the worst of it. There were times when I would get a call from the caregivers next door, and they'd say, "Would you please come over because we can't do anything with your mom?" And I would go over there and I'd stand in front of the door and I'd wait and I'd say, "Lord, I need your grace to walk in here." And every time he would give me his grace. And quite often he allowed humor to be the strategy that would diffuse the anger that she had. I remember this story where she was very angry and we were having this conversation. And in that conversation, I recognized that we were getting nowhere because of her anger. So I said, "Mom, would you just hold that thought for a minute? I'll be right back." And I walked out of our room, and I stayed there for a little bit, and then I come back into her room. And I said, "Mom, now what were we talking about?" If my mom remembered what we were talking about, I just said, "Well, Mom, that's great you remembered." And she got all excited and happy. If she didn't remember what we were talking about, wonderful. There's no more argument, and there was no more anger. If I had not grown in my confidence in my relationship with Christ, in my identity, and set healthy boundaries, I could not have navigated those years with my mother. If it had happened 10 years earlier, I would have been a mess because I had not gotten the healing that I needed. I had not fully forgiven her for all the pain that had been caused. I had not established healthy boundaries for me. God did provide, but I needed to forgive and I needed to heal first. Does that mean I wasn't triggered at times in those 7 years? Oh no, I was triggered many times. But because I knew how to deal with it, I was able to go to my God and allow him to heal, allow him to bring truth, allow him to take care of those wounds and lies that I had. He gave me the strength to go into that relationship with my mother so that I was able to do that without getting immersed in all the unhealthy part of it. I can honestly say that I was blessed to have the last 7 years of my mother's life. It was a precious gift to both me and my family. You know, there was often, I would tell myself as an encouragement as I was walking through that time, "Gloria, when you get through this, you're going to be amazing." Well, let me tell you, when you get through this, you are going to be amazing. It's time to go back to the study and more discussion.